Hey kids, it's Jurassic James, and on this Jurassic Explains looking at Orkoraptor. So what happened was very simple. The engineers, genetic engineers of Jurassic Park took an orca, aka a killer whale, and then they took a raptor, and they bred them together, and they made Orkoraptor. I'm kidding. Of course, that's a joke. It's a horrible joke. Orca means actually Tooth River Thief, Orkoraptor Tooth River Thief, in South America. And so here's, unfortunately for those of you who are fans of the scientific information and scientific models, there are no other Orkoraptor figures other than Jurassic World. So with the official assistant of Jurassic James, we will now free the beast. So we're going to cut right here and right there, freeing the beast. And we go ahead and put it back. And let's do this. And there we go. So I'm going to leave this little piece of plastic in there because my wife thought when she saw this, she's like, oh, it's been broken off or something. Like, no, that's the plastic that's kept keeping the batteries apart, so it won't make any noises. And as you may know, I'm not really super fond of the noises during my reviews. And inside, the tail's tucked away in there. And so we're going to, or we can use tools because we're human, and that's the thing humans do. So instead of just digging my fingernail like a dog or something. So let's see. Oh, I do so hate this. It's just, oh, so dangerous, so sharp, such blades. Okay, there we go. Now, and the tail, and then here's the tail. You put it in, and it turns, so it clicks. The feet, they don't go, they're close together, huh? Yeah, it works. Okay, so oh fine, I'll remove it. Okay, Orkoraptor. Here's the thing. I'll just put that on that. There you go. So first and foremost, as all Jurassic World figures now do, in the tracker line, you give it a DNA code because kids need that. They can't just play with toys anymore. I'm getting old. The point is, you take this little latch here and you turn it. Exciting. So, Orkoraptor, what's the deal with this guy? So first and foremost, these guys are really... Let's just unpack this. Okay, so first and foremost, in the toy line, this is the closest relative to a Megaraptor. So they are considered Megaraptorans. So again, I mentioned in the Megaraptor video that, you know, we have so much fun. It's just so much to say right now, and I organize it, but still. So the idea is that you have like your Tyrannosaurs and your Raptors, or Dromaeosaurs, and you have your Spinosaurs, and you have your Abelisaurs, which I've done many videos on Abelisaurs. You have the Allosaurians, you know, like that, right? And so Megaraptor is a group that we're not quite sure where they fit in. And so first and foremost, and I will in the end talk about the actual animal, but I need you to understand where it fits in before I do that. Right? So the analogy I have assembled, I'm going to move all you guys around. So say, for example, you're a biologist in the turn of the 17, I don't know, whichever century, and you are looking at these animals, and you're like, how animals are related to each other, and that's why there's different kinds of them. And how do you define the different kinds of animals? Now, one thing to point out is that you know what cats are. Again, I said in the last video that if you were describing what a cat was to an alien, you're like, oh, it has fur and whiskers and a long tail and it's 4 legs and 2 ears and all that. You're still describing a dog, a bear at that point. So, you know, you have to have more detail to get to a certain point. So, in general, you see a lion and a leopard, you're like, those are like the same kind of thing. And you see a black bear and a brown bear, you're like, yeah, that's closer than the leopard. And you see a wolf and a coyote, and you're like, yeah, I'm knocking it out of the park. And then you say, wait a minute, what about hyenas? Well, hyenas look like dogs. They have, you know, longer legs where their faces look. But actually, if you look at the anatomy of a hyena, they actually are closer to cats. Now, the feline side of this. And bears are closer to dogs. Now, they are not dogs, they're closer to dogs. So so what I'm saying is that a hyena and a lion and leopard share a common ancestor. The lion and leopard have a closer common ancestor. Let's say they have a grandparent, and then the hyena has a great-great-grandparent that they share with these guys. And same thing here. The wolf and the coyote share a grandparent. The black bear and the brown bear, or grizzly bear, share a grandparent. But they all share, these two share a great-great-grandparent. But then all both of them share a great, add more numbers, great grandparent, making them mammals, or carnivora, and then beyond that mammals. And then over here, wait, there's an orca, there's a shark. The orca and the shark have fins. Those are the same things. Then I slap you. And I say, no, because sharks have skeleton made of cartilage, and orcas are mammals that don't produce, they don't have hair, but they actually do produce milk, and they lost hair because of the ocean. And so the idea is that the shark is way out there, and this guy is closer to mammals. But he's not a carnivora. You're like, what do you mean he eats meat? He's not a carnivora. He's actually closer to like hippos, which is a whole thing in itself. Look it up, or I'll tell you in the video. Tell me if you want to hear that video. The point is, you're looking at these animals, you're looking at their behavior, their physical traits, their anatomy, and we're saying, here's how they're related to each other, right? And that's pretty difficult today. That being said, we are now going back in time and looking at animals that are hundreds, 90 so million years, well, 75 million years old. They're extinct, and they're fragmented, and there's no muscles or meat or blood. And so we're like, well, how are they related? And so it's really a thing to figure this out. So I come off like, we just don't know, but like there's a reason why we don't know, because we only have a few bones from each animal, and they're from separate from time and space. So back to the main story. So the idea is very simple. We have here the Orkoraptor. When it was first discovered, they are like, maybe it is related to a Compsognathus. Now, if you remember, Compsognathus is the, quote, copy in Jurassic World and Park. And this is a Papo figure, so it's the most accurate copy, which is ironic because the Jurassic World ones aren't as accurate as this one. Accurate to the movie, not accurate to actual science. Note. And so the idea that in the theropod group, predator dinosaurs, and again, I'll link below, there are major groups. I can show you some of them. So we have the Spinosaur group right here. And Spinosaurs are, they're just a load of fun. And then we have the Carcharodontosaurus. So we have Giganosaurus in South America. We have Carcharodontosaurus in Africa. We have Africantosaurus in North America. And we have, and I would show you them all, but I've done videos on them already, and also table space. But the idea is that these large animals, and these guys are thought to by many to be essentially descendants of the Allosaurus. So the idea is that these guys are these two are very similar, like our leopard and cat. This is a different kind of thing, but closer to that, right? And on this side, we have, can you see her? Can you see her? There she is. The Tyrannosaur. Oh, the one time I wanted to roar, it doesn't. There I go. So the Tyrannosaurus. And so the Orkoraptors, well, the Compsognathus, sorry. So in theropods, there's the Carnosaurs, these really big predators that include the Allosaurus and the Giganosaurs. And there's the Coelurosaurs, which include like the Compies. And I did anticipate this part. Sorry, I put the raptor down. The raptors, Dromaeosaurus. And so these guys, so the Tyrannosaurus Rex is closer to these guys. Even though you look at him and you're like, it's the same, it's big, but that's convergence to get bigger. These guys are close related to anatomy. So Orkoraptor, we're like, where does he fit in? And the idea is, at some arguments, that maybe it's a Spinosaurus, because the name Megaraptor, the family name I mentioned in the last Megaraptor video, they have this giant claw, and it's bigger than any Dromaeosaur, any normal raptor claw. And so the idea, and if you want to know more about that, go to that video, because I can't do it all right now. The point is, they find this giant claw, and they're like, it must be a giant Dromaeosaur, a giant raptor. And so the name was Megaraptor, and it was like, wow, we found raptors in South America. And so the idea here is, they said, well, wait a minute, we found more stuff, and it turns out it wasn't a foot claw, it was a hand claw. And so where Dromaeosaurs, these little guys here, they have four, lose a pinky, they have four claws. They walk on two, they have a really big one, they have a dew claw. Their hands are like this. Well, it turns out this guy's hand was like this, but the difference is, this first, they lost the two, this is lost. The first finger was very long, had a giant claw. So they say, oh, it's a giant claw in his hand, and who do we know that have giant claws in their hands? Oh, the Spinosaurs, like Baryonyx and those guys. And so it was also argued or suggested that maybe they're Spinosaurs, like these, well, we have, I'll say these South American Spinosaurs, but we actually have Irritator from South America and others. But the point is, they're like, no, and someone's like, maybe they're Allosaurian, but technically the traits the Allosaurs have that they shared, many groups have. And so they're like, well, maybe they're the Tyrannosaurs, because the Tyrannosaurs, I have a new, like a PNSO Tyrannosaur model, and I'm going to do a whole thing on Tyrannosaur evolution, particularly. I think I already have here and there, but like hit it direct. And so they're like, maybe there is, this the Tyrannosaur family, or this, not family, but this grouping of animals called tyrannosaurs is bursting beyond what we expected. Why wouldn't the Microraptors, sorry, why wouldn't the Microraptors be in that kind of group, like an offshoot, right? And so that's what's going on there. And so that's the hot debate right now, right? And so there are, and I'm going to obviously quote, pick a side or lean towards one, but in general, that's what's going on. And so just like we have the bears, the cats, the dogs, we're kind of like, who's related to who? We're doing the same thing here with this guy. And so when I mentioned my first Megaraptor video, I was like, oh, where does he fall in? You know, and then so now there's more evidence, there's more specimen. They found one called Maya, something, some giant one's like 30 feet long. And so that we're getting more information, right? So, you know, people say, in paleontology, like what you know, when I do a tour or a lecture, this is what, how can I say this nicely? When I do tours and lectures, it's very much fundamentals. It's like, here's these basic concepts. Here's what we see here, like that. This is the stuff that I really think about. This is like, well, who's related to? And a new paper comes out and I go, we found more evidence showing this. And I get super excited. And I show my wife, and she's like, good, because she's normal. She's like, I guess you're happy. Whatever this means is good. So back on the main argument, let's see. So we know the argument of Spinosaurus have been thrown out. They're pretty much clear that's not the thing. I'm going to move you to the side. The Allosaur argument's still out there, but it's kind of losing gust wind. And so what's going on now is they're saying, okay, yeah, it's a Coelurosaur. Most of the features, Coelurosaurus being the raptors, the Drexes, the Compys, the Gallimimus, all those guys are of this group. So they're Coelurosaurid. That's what most people are arguing now. And so where do they fit in Coelurosaurid? And so someone's like Tyrannosaurus. You say, why Tyrannosaurus? Well, it turns out in science, you need a lot of data, a lot of information, a lot of studies. And Tyrannosaurus has like the best PR. I'm not sure if you noticed it. It's kind of a big deal. And so the idea here is that people who study Tyrannosaurs get more notoriety. And so there's an incentive for people to study more Tyrannosaurs, to get notoriety, to get funding, to get whatever. This is fun. And so because that happens, there are more papers on Tyrannosaurus than other dinosaurs. And so because there's more papers on it, people know more about it, people want to know more and more and more, and it kind of like self-fulfills, feeds in. So looking at Orkoraptor, like, where does he fit in Coelurosaur? Like, maybe Tyrannosaurs, you know, like those guys are pretty hot. And so I'm not saying that's the motivation, but there's a lot of information to base it off of. And so with Orkoraptors are being closer to Tyrannosaur, so the question now is, are they another branch of Tyrannosaurid, or are they a sister taxon? And that's kind of where the latest paper fell on. That they're not Tyrannosaurs. They are converging like them. They may share ancestry somewhat. Well, they all do. They're theropods, right? But the idea is that and I'll explain it this way. So, who are the other Megaraptorids or Megaraptorid candidates? So there's Megaraptor, so you may have heard of him. There's Orkoraptor, and there's two dinosaurs that I have never done a video on, and I barely mention off camera because it's a whole thing. So in Japan, there's a dinosaur called Fukiraptor, and when I do summer camp, and I teach summer camp at the museum, I draw, coloring sheets in the mornings for the kids. And it's like Myosaurus Monday, and Thoracosaurus Thursdays, obviously, and Tyrannosaurus Tuesdays, or Triceratops Tuesdays. Well, for Friday, I was pick Fukiraptor, because there's very few dinosaurs whose names start with F, and so people were like, is that a real name? It's like, yeah, I just made it up. The whole week has been accurate. This is a made-up one. So the point is, Fukiraptor is one that, again, I only have just one model of Fukiraptor. They don't make a lot of Fukiraptors. In Australia, there's this guy called Australvenator. So I think it was first hinted at, nodded at, in Walking with Dinosaurs, 1999, BBC. And it was mentioned as expected to be an allosaurid kind of dinosaur. They found more. Now this one, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't give you names and information. And, oh, this one's very tiny. Let's see. Here is the Let There Be Light. It's on the base. I wonder if I can see it. Fukiraptor 2019, Collect A. Once again, a strike again, Collect A. This is a, Australvenator, which means Southern Hunter, Australia, Collect A. Same thing here. And so if you go to a store called Marshall's, I'm not sure if Marshall's exists where you are, but there are stores like, at least kind of like Ross and Burlington. These stores are kind of like, not secondhand, but like a step. I don't know. I don't understand how they work. The point is, this guy is a Australvenator-like animal from Marshall's. The company has no name on it. I can't find it, but if it's a pack of these 1, 2, 3, like 2 to 5 figures of dinosaurs, they're not to scale to each other, and they seem to be hollow because they have the screws on the side. So I don't know. I think if I could find a couple more models, I would do one on this guy. But until then, You gotta wait. So the point is, but it's one of those dinosaurs where they found it and they found the footprint or without the footprints and the arms were like, hey, this is kind of weird. He's not a Tyrannosaur. He's not an Allosaur. What is he? And so now they're saying maybe he's a Megaraptor because there's this new kids on the block. Now they knew, like they've been there the whole time. We just hadn't really found them where they fit in. There's a whole section of paleontology where these animals are we're like, we don't know where this thing's, but we don't talk about it very often because obviously. So those are debatably Megaraptor groups. And so with that being said, so here's the thing. There's another guy. And I bought this and I thought I did a video. I didn't apparently. So this animal called Ceats. And that's the genus. It's just Ceats. It's very short. North America, Utah, about 90 million years ago, a little over 90 million years ago. And so this guy here is like, maybe it's like a descendant of the Allosaurs. Or if I didn't do a video, I may have said that because at the time we thought that. But the idea is that this may be, if often considered, could it be a Megaraptor? We're not sure. And so the big deal with this guy is in Ceats environment in Utah, North America, we have this guy, Moros intrepidus. And this little guy was made famous now by Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom, and they were like that big. It was really annoying. They're bigger than that. But the point is, this is thought to be relative to Tyrannosaur. And so what we're seeing in the early Cretaceous is that the Giganotosaurus cousins, the Carcharodontosaurs, they were in charge. They were the biggest predators on the continents, right? And we believe that when these guys died out, that's when the Tyrannosaurs took over. Like that, Acrocanthosaurus dies, and then we have Tyrannosaurs who were smaller. They were there the whole time. They're just really small. Then they get bigger and replace them. Now it's being argued, because we see Ceats and things like it, that, oh, this guy took over first in North America, and then the Tyrannosaurs were small, and when they died out, then Tyrannosaurs finally took over at the very end. And so the idea in South America is that we have these big, like Giganotosaurus and Mapusaurus, these guys are ruling South America as far as the carnivores go, and when they die out, the Megaraptors may replace them, because, I didn't mention this, but Orkoraptor is Campanian, meaning it's around 75 million years ago, and then the Megaraptor is, right before that, it's like 88 million years ago. So this is a descendant or successor in a sense. And so, again, okay, so that's a lot of science and ideas and theories. I'm sorry if you don't like that kind of thing, let me know. If you do like it, let me know. But it's really exciting. Now, and the last thing on this note is there's this guy, right? His name is Eoraptor. I'm not Eotyrannus, sorry. Eotyrannus, not Eoraptor. Early Cretaceous, England. It's a British dinosaur. He drinks tea. No, I'm kidding. That's probably racist. I don't know. Sorry. The point is, he's British. British island dinosaur. And so when I say Tyrannosaurs, I'm like, they're from North America, and they're from Asia. And, oh yeah, and from England. It's this one guy. Like, what I'm saying is that all the Tyrannosaurs I talk about are in Asia or North America, except for this one. So it's Eotyrannus, this is early Tyrannosaur, and I'm like, where does he fit in? And so in some of the papers, Eotyrannus was absorbed into the Megaraptor. They're like, oh, maybe it's a Megaraptor. That's why I feel weird. But because we see Megaraptors starting off in Asia, just like we see Tyrannosaurs starting off in Asia and then migrating out. But then another paper came back and goes, no, it's a Tyrannosaur. So, ping pong. The point is, Orkoraptor, the figure. So looking at the body of the animal, its tail is too short because obviously the packaging is... Okay, here's a question. They make the tail shorter so it can fit in the packaging, right? That's the thing. If you disassemble the tail and you have it inside, why not just have it arc around the top? Like, why not be in the package? Why not, instead of the tail just being right here in the package, why not just have it arc around over? Now they can be long enough. That's the thing for me. I don't know why. Anyway, so looking at the hands, so the concern about the hands is that Megaraptors, yes, now looking at your digits, it's the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and dinosaurs often lose them going in. And so, again, the first claw or first digit is much longer, it's the biggest claw. This one does not show that. The fingers all look essentially all the same. Well, the middle one's longer, or the second is longer, but you should really see Google image a Megaraptor hand, you'll see this giant claw, like the first one, like what we consider a thumb. That first one's really large, so that's incorrect there. These guys have feathers. Now that's a question, because, they're Coelurosaurs, and Coelurosaurs are for feathers. but it's kind of, you know, so I don't know. No comment. What I do like is that it has a very deep or wide body. Like if you were to cut it in half, like a butcher, you'd see it's very deep. That's what we see in many of the Megaraptors we find ribs for. And ribs are very important. People don't realize how important ribs are. They you know, they think, oh, they're just there to fill in. Like, no, they're telling you how wide and deep the animal is. If you look at Triceratops ribs, they like the vertebrae here, they go like that and they go up and around like that, showing this really wide body. When we look at a Mosasaurus, a duckbill, their ribs are very narrow like that, so their guts are more elongated to the torso, not just in his gut right there. And so the ribs of their cousins have been found, so they're really, really deep bodied animals. I mean, the species of the new one is Macrothorax, I believe, and it means big chest, essentially. And so that's something that's really important to the animals. Plus, I like the way their skulls look. We don't find the whole skulls. We find fragments of skulls, nose bits and stuff like that. And that's why, again, they're saying, oh, like Tyrannosaurs, they have the same on the nose sometimes. Not the jaw and crushing and all that, but just the tip of the nose and all that. And so I like whether, okay, so this is like the last thing, whether it's true or not, I like the fact that their heads look different. And what I mean by that is, if you look at I mean, this guy's skull is, I told you, I don't hate it, but the way it does this like rolling toward, I get that it's a toy and it's doing this like rolling this, but what's really inaccurate is the skull is way too wide. If you look at a Echo or any of these Carcharodontosaurus skulls, they're very, very narrow. They're very like scissors in some ways. I went to the museum and stood on a ladder in front of the Echo. It's like the face is like just flat, right? But they're different. The skulls are all different. So I like that they look different than everyone else because it's not just an Allosaurus, it's not just a Tyrannosaurus, it's its own thing. And the Orkoraptor shows that too. And the final thing with Orkoraptor that's kind of, to me, really cool is that when I did a video on Dreadnoughtosaurus, many moons ago, let's move you over here. So much toy action. There's a lot going on here. So anyway, when I did a video on the Dreadnoughtus, and you can see he's been standing here the whole time. Look at that right there. I love these giant sauropod toys. I have so many of them. It's ridiculous. So this guy, Dreadnoughtus, and Orkoraptor were found in the exact same formation. So they are contemporaries. So you're like, wait a minute, did Megaraptor live there? They're different times. They're older, actually. And so these guys are contemporaries in the same, not just same time, but same formation. And I mentioned in my Dreadnoughtus video, they found like a lot of the body, like a couple of neck vertebrae, I think part of the skull, but this part was all missing. And so, if I remember correctly, the paper was saying that they found scavenging marks on the bones of the Dreadnoughtus, and they attributed them to Orkoraptor because it's like the right size and, you know, to be in the environment, right? So that's kind of a cool thing to point out there. So again, South America has a rich history, different layers, just like North America. And again, I hopefully by the time you see this video, I will have added Orkoraptor to my family tree of theropods and everything, and the timescale as well, because this is really important to understand these connections. With that being said, I'll say see you next week. Thank you for tuning in. I don't know why I like doing that. I don't know why. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next week with something different. And not dinosaurs.